there are people in this world who do not simply observe emotions, they absorb them. They walk into a room and instantly feel the invisible atmosphere surrounding everyone inside it. Before a single word is spoken, they already sense tension, sadness, joy, fear, or anxiety moving through the space like an unseen current. If you are one of these people, you may have spent much of your life wondering why certain environments exhaust you, why some conversations linger in your heart for hours, or why the emotional pain of others feels almost personal. What you may not realize is that this sensitivity is not weakness. It is awareness operating at a deeper level. Most people are taught to trust only what they can see with their eyes or hear with their ears. But human beings are energetic by nature. Every thought carries energy. Every emotion creates a vibration. Every person silently radiates an emotional frequency into the world around them. And sensitive souls feel these frequencies constantly, often without understanding what is happening inside them. You may suddenly feel heavy after talking to someone who is suffering. You may feel anxious in a crowded place even when nothing danger. It's happening. You may even notice your mood changing dramatically around certain individuals. This happens because your inner system is highly receptive. Think about how quickly a smile can brighten a room, or how tension between two people can make everyone uncomfortable without explanation. Energy speaks long before language does. Sensitive people hear this silent language all the time. They pick up what others overlook. They feel what others suppress. And because of this, they often carry emotional weight that does not even belong to them. One of the most confusing experiences for empathetic people is the inability to separate their own emotions from the emotions they absorb. You may wake up feeling peaceful and centered, only to encounter someone carrying frustration or sadness, and suddenly your emotional state shifts completely. In those moments, you may think something is wrong with you, but nothing is wrong. Your awareness is simply open. Your heart is listening beyond words. The challenge is that many sensitive people spend years fighting this gift instead of understanding it. They try to harden themselves. They try to stop feeling so deeply. They convince themselves that becoming emotionally numb is the answer. But the purpose is not to close your sensitivity. The purpose is to develop wisdom around it. Sensitivity without awareness becomes emotional exhaustion. Sensitivity with awareness becomes intuition, compassion, and inner intelligence. When you begin to understand your energetic nature, your life starts to make sense in a completely different way. You realize why certain relationships drain you while others energize you. You understand why fake smiles feel uncomfortable to you, why dishonesty creates tension in your body, and why peaceful people instantly calm your nervous system. Your body is constantly responding to the energetic information around you. This is why protecting your inner peace becomes essential. Sensitive people cannot continuously expose themselves to negativity without consequences. Just as the body becomes weak from unhealthy food, the mind and spirit become exhausted from toxic emotional environments. And yet, many empathetic souls ignore their own emotional needs because they are so focused on caring for others. They become emotional caretakers for everyone around them, while quietly carrying invisible pain inside. They themselves. But true empathy does not mean sacrificing your peace. Compassion should never require self-destruction. You cannot heal others by abandoning yourself. In fact, the more connected you become to your own inner stillness, the more powerful your presence becomes for those around you. A peaceful heart naturally brings comfort into the world. And this is where transformation begins. The moment you stop seeing your sensitivity as a burden, it becomes a doorway to deeper consciousness. Your ability to feel deeply allows you to connect deeply. Your awareness allows you to perceive truth beneath appearances. Your emotional openness allows you to experience love, beauty, and human connection in profound ways that others may never fully understand. Sensitive people are often the quiet healers of the world. They are the ones who notice when someone is suffering in silence. They are the ones who offer kindness when everyone else is distracted. They are the ones who instinctively know when another soul needs comfort, understanding, or simply to be seen. This gift is sacred when it is balanced with self-awareness. So if you have always felt different, if emotions affect you in the first place, necessarily if crowded spaces overwhelm you, or if you often carry feelings that seem too heavy to explain, do not judge yourself for it. Learn to honor your sensitivity instead of hiding from it. Your heart was never meant to become cold. We are limited. It was meant to become conscious. Because the deepest strength is not found in those who feel nothing. It is found in those who feel everything and still choose love. There are moments when you enter a crowded place and without understanding why, your energy begins to disappear. At first, it may feel subtle, a little restlessness in the body, a slight heaviness in the mind. But as time passes, the noise, movement, conversations, emotions, and invisible tension around you begin to collect inside your nervous system. By the time you leave, you feel emotionally exhausted, mentally drained, and disconnected from yourself. And what confuses you most is that nothing bad actually happened. You were simply surrounded by too much energy at once. This is one of the clearest signs of a deeply empathetic and sensitive person. Crowded environments affect you differently because your awareness is constantly absorbing emotional information from the people around you. Most individuals move through public spaces only noticing physical activity. But sensitive souls perceive emotional vibrations beneath the surface. Every person carries thoughts, stress, fears, frustrations, hopes, and emotional tension into a room, and your system unconsciously responds to all of it. Imagine standing in the middle of hundreds of radio frequencies playing at the same time. Even if you are not consciously listening, your mind is still processing the noise. This is what happens energetically to highly sensitive people in crowded places. Shopping malls, airports, parties, loud gatherings, or even busy family events can overwhelm the emotional senses because there are simply too many energetic signals moving at once. And often, sensitive people blame themselves for this exhaustion. They think they are antisocial, weak, awkward, or emotionally unstable. But the reality is much deeper. Your nervous system was never designed to constantly carry the emotional weight of an overstimulated world. Modern life rewards endless activity, constant interaction, noise, speed, and stimulation. Yet the human spirit naturally longs for silence, stillness, and meaningful connection. Sensitive people feel this conflict more intensely than others. You may notice that after spending time in large crowds, you need isolation to recover. You crave silence. You want to sit alone, listen to calming music, walk in nature, simply breathe without interruption. This is not avoidance, it is restoration. Your energy is trying to return to balance after absorbing too much emotional stimulation. There is wisdom in understanding this about yourself. Many people spend years forcing themselves into environments that continuously drain them because they fear being misunderstood. They ignore the signals of their body and spirit. They stay in loud spaces too long. They say yes when their inner self is begging for rest. Eventually, emotional exhaustion becomes chronic, anxiety increases, mental clarity fades, and they lose touch with their own center. But awareness changes everything. The moment you understand that your energy matters, you begin to live differently. You become more intentional about where you spend your time and who you allow into your emotional space. You stop believing that protecting your peace is selfish. In truth, it is necessary. Sensitive people. Must learn the art of energetic boundaries, not walls that separate them from humanity, but conscious boundaries that allow them to remain open without becoming overwhelmed. There is a difference between compassion and emotional absorption. You can care deeply about others without carrying their pain inside your body. You can be loving without sacrificing your inner balance. And this balance begins with self awareness. Start noticing how different environments affect your spirit. Pay attention to the people who leave you feeling peaceful and the ones who leave you emotionally depleted. Your body constantly communicates with you, but most people have forgotten how to listen. Sensitive souls are being called to listen again. There is also something important to understand about crowded environments. They disconnect people from presence. In busy places, human beings often operate from stress, distraction, impatience, and unconscious behavior. Everyone is rushing. Everyone is mentally somewhere else. Sensitive individuals feel this collective restlessness deeply because they naturally seek emotional authenticity and calm awareness. This is why solitude becomes sacred for empathetic. See people in silence, they reconnect with themselves. In nature, they release emotional heaviness. In stillness, they hear their own thoughts again instead of everyone else's emotional noise. Solitude is not loneliness when it is conscious, it is healing. And yet, your sensitivity is not meant to isolate you from the world. It is meant to teach you how to move through the world with greater awareness. Once you understand your energy, crowds no longer control you in the same way. You begin grounding yourself before entering overwhelming spaces. You become mindful of your breathing. You learn to pause internally instead of absorbing everything unconsciously. You stop taking responsibility for emotions that are not yours. This is spiritual maturity, not becoming numb, but becoming centered. The world needs sensitive people who know how to protect their peace. Because when your energy is balanced, your presence becomes calming to others. You bring stillness into chaotic environments. You become a quiet source of comfort in a restless world. But first, you must stop abandoning yourself in places that continuously drain your spirit. Your sensitivity is not the problem. The lack of near boundaries is. There is a quiet intelligence within sensitive people that goes far beyond ordinary observation. It is not something learned through logic, education, or analysis. It is felt almost instantly. They can sense when something is emotionally out of alignment. A person may smile, speak kindly, and pretend everything is fine, yet deep inside you feel a different truth. You sense sadness behind the laughter, tension behind the politeness, or dishonesty hidden beneath carefully chosen words. And many times you do not even know how you know. You simply feel it. This is one of the most powerful signs of deep empathy and energetic sensitivity. You are not only hearing what people say, you are feeling what they carry. Human beings communicate constantly without words. Through tone, silence, facial expression, emotional vibration, body language, and energetic presence, people reveal far more than they realize. Sensitive souls naturally perceive these hidden layers because their awareness operates beneath the surface level of conversation. Most people are trained to focus only on appearances. They judge based on words, status, or outward behavior. But deeply empathetic individuals sense emotional truth directly. They notice the hesitation in someone's voice. They feel the heaviness behind forced positivity. They recognize emotional pain hidden behind confidence. Even when someone says, "I'm fine," your spirit quietly whispers otherwise. And this ability can feel both beautiful and overwhelming. Beautiful because it allows deep connection and compassion. Overwhelming because you begin to see how much pain people hide from one another. You realize that many individuals are carrying invisible struggles while pretending to be strong. Some hide loneliness, others hide fear, insecurity, anger, grief, or emotional exhaustion. Sensitive people often become emotional mirrors, reflecting truths others try to suppress. You may have experienced moments where you instantly felt uncomfortable around someone everyone else seemed to trust. Or perhaps you sensed genuine kindness in someone others misunderstood. Later, your intuition proved correct. This is because sensitivity sharpens perception. You are responding to subtle energetic information that the conscious mind cannot always explain. But many people ignore their intuition because they have been conditioned to doubt themselves. Society teaches people to trust external appearances more than inner knowing. So when your intuition speaks softly, you may dismiss it. You tell yourself you are imagining things. You rationalize uncomfortable feelings. You silence the quiet voice inside. Yet again and again, life reveals that your inner awareness was trying to protect or guide you all along. Intuition is not fear. Intuition is clarity without noise. Fear feels chaotic and anxious. Intuition feels calm, direct, and immediate. It arrives quietly but powerfully. Sensitive people must learn to recognize the difference because their inner guidance is one of their greatest gifts. There is also a deeper spiritual reason why empathetic people can sense hidden emotions so easily. The human heart is naturally connected to other hearts. Beneath the illusion of separation, human beings are deeply interconnected energetically. Emotional states influence one another constantly. This is why one peaceful person can calm an entire room and one angry person can disturb it. Energy is contagious. Sensitive people experience this interconnectedness more consciously than others. Their emotional boundaries naturally thinner, allowing them to feel what others are feeling. And while this creates vulnerability, it also creates profound understanding. It allows you to look beyond behavior and recognize the wounded human being underneath. Someone who speaks harshly may actually be suffering deeply inside. Someone who constantly seeks attention may be starving for love. Someone who appears emotionally distant may simply be protecting old pain. Sensitive people often see these truths instinctively. This is why they tend to be compassionate even toward difficult people. They sense the hidden wounds behind the personality. However, this gift comes with an important lesson. Understanding someone's pain does not mean you must tolerate harmful behavior. Many empathetic individuals become trapped in toxic relationships because they can see the hurt beneath another person's actions. They excuse manipulation, dishonesty, or emotional harm because they feel compassion for the other person's suffering. But compassion without boundaries becomes self-betrayal. You are allowed to understand someone and still walk away. You are allowed to love someone without absorbing their chaos, and you are all allowed to trust the discomfort you feel around certain energies without needing external proof to justify it. Sensitive people often spend too much time trying to explain their intuition logically to others, but not everything meaningful can be explained through reason alone. Some truths are felt directly through awareness. Your body senses danger before your mind fully understands it. Your spirit recognizes sincerity before words confirm it. Your heart notices emotional shifts long before they become visible. This is not imagination. This is consciousness becoming more refined. The key is learning how to remain grounded while staying open. If you absorb every emotion you sense, you will become emotionally exhausted. But if you stay centered within yourself, your sensitivity transforms into wisdom. You begin observing emotions without drowning in them. You become compassionate without losing your peace. And over time, your intuition becomes one of the most trustworthy forces in your life. It guides you toward healthier relationships, peaceful environments, and authentic human connection. It warns you when energy feels unsafe. It draws you toward people whose presence feels genuine, and calm, because energy never lies. People may hide their words, they may hide their intentions. But the heart always reveals the truth to those who have learned how to feel. There comes a moment in the life of every deeply sensitive person when they begin to understand that being alone is not the same as being lonely. In fact, some of the most healing, transformative, and peaceful moments arise in complete solitude. After absorbing emotions, energies, conversations, and emotional tension from the world around them, empathetic people often feel an overwhelming need to retreat inward, not to escape life but to reconnect with themselves again. If you are highly sensitive to the energy of others, you may notice how essential quiet moments become for your emotional balance. After spending hours around people, even people you love, your spirit begins asking for silence. Your mind becomes crowded with emotional impressions that do not fully belong to you. And unless you create space to release them, you begin losing clarity, peace, and connection to your own inner voice. This is why solitude becomes sacred for sensitive souls. It is not selfishness, it is emotional restoration. The modern world has conditioned people to fear being alone. Silence makes many uncomfortable because it forces them to confront themselves without distraction. So they constantly seek stimulation: phones, conversations, noise, social activity, endless entertainment. They remain surrounded by external energy because they are afraid of stillness. But sensitive people often experience the opposite. They are not afraid of silence, they crave it. There is something deeply healing about stepping away from the emotional noise of the world and entering a space where your nervous system can finally breathe again. In solitude, the emotional pressure begins to dissolve. Your thoughts slow down, your body relaxes, your spirit starts returning to its natural rhythm. And gradually you remember what your own energy feels like beneath everything you have absorbed from others. Many empathetic individuals spend years ignoring this need. They force themselves to constantly socialize because they fear disappointing others or appearing distant. They remain available to everyone emotionally even when they are completely drained inside. Over time, this creates emotional exhaustion that becomes difficult to explain. They feel tired even after sleeping, heavy without understanding why, emotionally overwhelmed by small things. What they are experiencing is energetic overload. Sensitive people are not weak because they need solitude. They are simply more aware of the emotional weight they carry unconsciously. Think about how much energy human interaction requires. Every conversation involves emotional exchange. Every environment affects the nervous system. Every person radiates emotional frequency through thoughts, moods, stress, and intentions. Highly empathetic people absorb much more of this information than they realize. Without regular solitude, they lose emotional balance. And yet, many people misunderstand this need completely. They assume someone who enjoys being alone is antisocial, disconnected, or emotionally withdrawn. But true solitude is not isolation from life. It is reconnection with life at its deepest level. In solitude, you begin hearing your inner wisdom again. You begin noticing thoughts that were buried beneath noise. You begin feeling emotions that were hidden beneath distraction. And perhaps most importantly, you begin separating your own energy from the emotions you absorb from others. This is why time in nature feels especially healing for sensitive souls. Nature carries harmony instead of emotional chaos. Trees do not pretend. The sky does not manipulate. Water does not demand emotional performance. In natural spaces, the nervous system relaxes because there is no energetic conflict. the mind becomes still, the heart opens naturally. Many spiritually aware people throughout history sought solitude not because they rejected humanity, but because silence deepened consciousness. When you are constantly surrounded by noise, your awareness becomes scattered outward. But in stillness, awareness returns inward. And this inward connection changes everything. You begin realizing how often you abandoned yourself to meet the emotional expectations of others. You notice how much energy you spend trying to fix, rescue, or emotionally carry people around you. You become aware of relationships that drain your spirit instead of nourishing it. Solitude reveals truth because silence removes distraction. And sometimes sensitive people avoid solitude because they fear what they will discover there. When the noise disappears unresolved, emotions often rise to the surface. Old pain, sadness, loneliness, disappointment, and emotional wounds begin asking for attention. But healing only happens when we stop running from ourselves. Silence becomes transformational when we allow it to teach us instead of fearing it. There is also great spiritual power in learning how to enjoy your own presence. Many people depend entirely on others to feel emotionally complete. They seek validation, attention, and connection constantly because they have never developed peace within themselves. But when you become comfortable in solitude, your relationship with life changes. You no longer enter relationships out of emotional emptiness. You connect from wholeness instead of need. Sensitive people especially must learn this lesson because their compassionate nature often attracts emotionally dependent individuals. If you do not create time alone to recharge and reconnect with yourself, you slowly lose your center trying to emotionally sustain everyone else. Solitude teaches balance. It teaches you how to care without absorbing, how to love without losing yourself, how to remain open-hearted without becoming emotionally overwhelmed. And eventually you stop apologizing for needing space. You stop feeling guilty for protecting your peace. You understand that rest is not laziness, silence is not weakness, distance is not rejection. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is step away from the noise long enough to hear your own soul again. Because when you reconnect with your inner stillness, you return to the world with greater clarity, deeper compassion, and a peaceful energy that naturally heals others. Your solitude is not emptiness, it is where your spirit remembers its strength. One of the most difficult experiences for deeply sensitive people is the way negative energy lingers inside them long after a moment has passed. A harsh comment, an argument, a tense environment, or the emotional heaviness of another person can remain within their mind and body for hours, sometimes even days. While others move on quickly, sensitive souls continue feeling the emotional residue long after everyone else has forgotten it. And because of this, they often wonder why they feel things so intensely. The answer is simple. Your emotional system is open. You do not merely witness negativity, you absorb it. The emotions, words, and energies around you enter deeply into your awareness because your heart naturally receives everything with intensity. This sensitivity allows you to experience beauty, love, compassion, and connection in profound ways. But it also means negativity reaches you more deeply than it reaches most people. There are individuals who can sit in conflict all day and remain emotionally untouched. But for empathetic people, emotional tension creates internal disturbance almost immediately. Raised voices affect the nervous system. Dishonesty creates discomfort in the body. Criticism echoes repeatedly in the mind. Toxic behavior leaves an invisible heaviness that is difficult to explain. Even entering an environment filled with anger, stress, or emotional chaos can shift your energy completely. And many sensitive people spend years believing this means something is wrong with them. They call themselves too emotional, too sensitive, too affected by everything. But sensitivity itself is not the problem. The problem is living in a world that rarely teaches emotional awareness. Most people suppress emotions instead of understanding them. They project stress on others unconsciously. They speak from wounded places without realizing the energetic impact they create. Sensitive people feel these emotional projections immediately because their awareness is highly receptive. Imagine carrying a sponge into a storm. The sponge absorbs everything around it automatically. This is how empathetic individuals move through emotional environments. Without conscious boundaries, they collect stress, negativity, anxiety, frustration, and emotional pain from others until they become emotionally overwhelmed. This is why toxic environments feel unbearable for highly sensitive people. Workplaces filled with tension, relationships rooted in criticism or manipulation, homes where emotional conflict is constant. These environments slowly drain the spirit because the nervous system never feels safe enough to relax. Sensitive people need emotional harmony the way the body needs oxygen. And yet, because empathetic people naturally care deeply about others, they often stay in unhealthy environments far longer than they should. They try to understand everyone. They try to fix situations emotionally. They excuse toxic behavior because they see the pain behind it. But eventually, carrying too much negativity begins disconnecting them from themselves. You may notice this in your own life. After prolonged exposure to negativity, your energy changes. Motivation disappears. Inner peace fades. Overthinking increases. Small things begin affecting you more deeply. You feel emotionally heavy without fully understanding why. This happens because negative energy accumulates when it is not consciously released. Human beings are energetic creatures. Thoughts affect the body. Emotions influence the nervous system. The environments around us shape our inner state constantly. Sensitive people experience this truth directly because their awareness is more open than most. But here is the deeper lesson. Your sensitivity is not asking you to become emotionally hard. It is teaching you to become energetically wise. There is a difference between feeling energy and carrying it. You can notice negativity without allowing it to live inside you. You can acknowledge another person's pain without absorbing it as your own. And this requires boundaries, not walls built from fear, but conscious boundaries built from self-respect. Many empathetic individuals believe. E-love means endless emotional availability. They feel guilty protecting their peace because they do not want to disappoint others. But constantly exposing yourself to negativity does not make you compassionate. It makes you emotionally exhausted. True compassion includes yourself. You are not responsible for healing every wounded person you encounter. You are not meant to carry everyone's emotional burden. Some people unconsciously transfer their pain onto others because they have never learned how to process it themselves. Sensitive souls must recognize when they are absorbing emotional weight that does not belong to them. This is why grounding practices become essential. Silence, meditation, nature, deep breathing, solitude. These are not luxuries for sensitive people, they are emotional necessities. They help release accumulated energy from the mind and body. They restore inner clarity after emotional overload. You must also become intentional about the energy you allow into your life. Pay attention to how your body responds around certain people. Your nervous system often recognizes unhealthy energy before your mind fully understands it. Some people leave you feeling calm, inspired, and emotionally safe. Others leave you drained, anxious, and emotionally unsettled. Your energy is communicating truth constantly. And perhaps one of the most important lessons sensitive people must learn is this: protecting your peace is not selfish. You do not need to remain in emotionally harmful spaces to prove your kindness. You do not need to tolerate negativity to demonstrate love. And you do not need to explain your need for peace to those who only understand chaos. The more you honor your emotional well-being, the more balanced your sensitivity becomes. Instead of drowning in negativity, you begin observing it without absorbing it. You remain compassionate without losing yourself emotionally. You develop the ability to stay centered even when the world around you becomes emotionally turbulent. This is inner strength, not becoming numb to negativity, but learning how to remain peaceful in its presence. Because your energy is sacred, and not every environment deserves access to your spirit. One of the most beautiful qualities of deeply sensitive and empathetic people is their natural desire to heal others, long before they fully understand themselves. West, they often feel drawn toward comforting pain, easing emotional suffering, and bringing peace wherever they go. They become the person others confide in, the quiet listener during difficult moments, the calming presence in emotional storms. Even as children, many empathetic souls instinctively sensed when someone around them was hurting. They felt emotional tension in the home, sadness hidden behind smiles, or pain that nobody spoke about openly. And without realizing it, they began carrying the emotional burdens of others as if it were their responsibility. This healing nature does not come from ego, it comes from deep emotional connection. Sensitive people genuinely feel the suffering of others, and because they understand pain so intimately, they naturally want to reduce it. They offer encouragement, patience, compassion, and emotional presence because their hearts are open. When someone cries, they feel it. When someone struggles, they instinctively want to help. And often they give far more of themselves emotionally than anyone realizes. But this beautiful gift can also become a silent source of exhaustion. Many empathetic individuals spend so much time healing others that they forget to care for themselves. They become emotional caretakers for everyone around them while quietly neglecting their own inner world. They listen endlessly, support endlessly, forgive endlessly, and give endlessly, believing love means constant self sacrifice. Over time, they become emotionally drained without understanding why. You may have experienced this yourself. Someone shares their pain with you, and afterward, you carry their sadness inside your own body for hours. You feel emotionally responsible for making others feel better. You struggle saying no because you do not want anyone to suffer. You continue giving energy even when your spirit feels depleted. And eventually, you begin feeling empty because you have been pouring from a cup that was never refilled. This happens because empathetic people often confuse healing with rescuing. True healing does not mean carrying another person's emotional weight for them. It does not mean sacrificing your peace to save someone else from their own lessons. Real healing happens through presence, compassion, and awareness, not through emotional self destruction. There is an important truth sensitive souls must learn. You cannot heal people by abandoning yourself. And yet, many empathetic individuals build their identity around being needed. They become so accustomed to helping others that they forget who they are outside of giving. Their worth becomes tied to service, support, and emotional availability. They fear disappointing people because they associate love with self sacrifice. But eventually, the soul grows tired of being ignored. When you constantly prioritize everyone else's emotions over your own, resentment quietly begins growing beneath the surface. Emotional exhaustion turns into heaviness. Compassion becomes burnout. And the heart that once felt open and loving begins feeling overwhelmed and disconnected. This is why balance is essential for healers and sensitive people. Compassion must include self compassion. Love must flow inward as well as outward. Otherwise, healing becomes imbalance disguised as kindness. You must remember that your presence alone already carries healing energy. You do not need to fix every problem. You do not need to absorb every emotion. Sometimes the greatest gift you can offer another person is simply being fully present without trying to control their joy. Ernie, healing often happens naturally when people feel seen, heard, and accepted without judgment. There is also wisdom in recognizing that not everyone truly wants healing. Some people become attached to their suffering because it has become part of their identity. Others repeatedly create chaos because it feels familiar. Sensitive people often exhaust themselves trying to save individuals who are unwilling to transform. This creates painful cycles where the empathetic person gives endlessly while the other person remains emotionally unchanged. You are not responsible for awakening those who refuse to see. You are not responsible for carrying pain that another soul must learn to face themselves. And you are not failing anyone by protecting your own energy. The most powerful healers understand boundaries. They know when to help and when to step back. They recognize the difference between supporting someone and becoming emotionally consumed by their struggles. Without boundaries, empathy becomes emotional absorption. With wisdom, empathy becomes healing. Sensitive people must also learn to receive, not just give. Many compassionate individuals feel uncomfortable accepting help, love, rest, or emotional support because they are so used to being the giver. But healing is not one directional. Human beings are meant to support one another. Allowing yourself to receive love is part of emotional balance. And perhaps the deepest transformation occurs when you stop seeing your sensitivity as a burden and begin recognizing it as a sacred responsibility. Your ability to feel deeply allows you to bring gentleness into a harsh world. Your awareness allows you to notice suffering others ignore. Your compassion allows people to feel emotionally safe in your presence. This world desperately needs people who can still feel. People who still choose kindness in a culture of emotional numbness. People who still offer understanding in a world filled with judgment. But to continue being a light for others, you must protect your own flame. You must rest without guilt. You must say no without fear. You must stop pouring endlessly into people who never refill your spirit. Because healing the world should never require losing yourself in the process. The most powerful healers are not those who sacrifice their souls for everyone else. They are the ones who remain compassionate while still honoring their own peace.